In a statement, the National Catholic Register reveals that, according to a leaked email, Pope Leo XIV intends to convene an extraordinary consistory in January 2026. An extremely rare event in the life of the Church, so rare that it has shaken the Vatican and given rise to the first rumors. Some are already talking about a possible Third Vatican Council. Are we facing a turning point? Everything suggests something big is about to happen. Stay with us until the end. The news comes not from the Vatican, but from a very specific and authoritative source, the National Catholic Register, which has made known Pope Leo XIV's intention to convene an extraordinary consistory on January 7th and 8th, 2026. This revelation does not arise from generic journalistic leaks, but from an actual document, a brief communication sent to the cardinals on November 6th and obtained by the Register. In it, the Vatican Secretariat of State informs that His Holiness Pope Leo XIV intends to convene an extraordinary consistory, and that further details will be provided by the Dean of the College of Cardinals. It was therefore the Register, not the Vatican, that first brought the news to light. So far, in fact, no official comment has come from Santa Marta or the Curia offices. The Pope's intention remains just that, an intention, not yet a formally published act, but it is already enough to arouse attention and questions. The lack of details leads many observers to wonder about the true significance of this convocation. It's rare for a pontiff, just months into his ministry, to decide to summon all the world's cardinals to an extraordinary consistory. The term itself, in curial parlance, is not used by chance. It indicates an assembly convened to address issues of global importance, often linked to government decisions or doctrinal orientations. What then is being prepared behind the Leonine walls? Leo XIV, who has so far maintained a discreet but firm profile, seems to want to give the Church a different rhythm, more collegial in form, but perhaps more decisive in substance. Many remember that his predecessor, Pope Francis, preferred to manage the governance of the Church through thematic synods and small meetings, avoiding plenary meetings of the College of Cardinals. The decision to reinstate this practice already marks a break with the past, and at a time when rumors of a possible Third Vatican are circulating again, the announcement takes on a significance that goes beyond mere routine administration. It's an idea that's been floating around for years, but until now, no pope has really wanted to touch upon it. Francis himself, in an interview in 2023, declared that the Church is not yet ready for a third council. Now, with Leo XIV, the tone seems to have changed, even if no official word confirms this direction. The reference to the Second Vatican Council is inevitable. That council, celebrated 60 years ago, ushered in a period of profound transformation in the life of the Church, but it also left wounds and questions that remain unanswered. In the decades that followed, the interpretation of his texts divided theologians and pastors. On the one hand, those who claimed his legacy as a spirit of renewal. On the other, those who saw in it a break with tradition. In this context, a possible new council would appear to be a gesture of epical significance. It could serve to definitively clarify unresolved issues or, on the contrary, risk rekindling tensions that have never subsided. For many faithful attached to tradition, the very idea of a Third Vatican arouses mistrust. They fear that instead of restoring clarity, It will open the door to new ambiguities. But there are also those who see in Leo the 14th's firmness a sign of hope, the possibility of bringing theological debate back to a ground of greater fidelity to perennial doctrine. In any case, if the January consistory were to truly represent the first step towards a confrontation of this breadth, it would be a move destined to mark his pontificate. Some observers point out that, in the Church's logic, major changes never happen suddenly. Every signal, every gesture, every measured word prepares the ground for the next step. And if the extraordinary consistory were to actually herald a council, it would not be an immediate announcement, but a gradual process. First, the discussion among the cardinals, then the formation of theological commissions, finally, the official proclamation. All in keeping with the Vatican's long-term tradition, where the future is built slowly and prudently. A new clue to the path undertaken by Leo XIV comes from Brazil, where the pontiff delivered, through Cardinal Pietro Parolin, a message intended for the Conference of the Parties to the United Nations Convention on Climate Change, the so-called COP30. It is in this text that the controversial phrase appears: "May ecological conversion inspire the development of a new international financial architecture centered on humanity." Words that, in their apparent simplicity, reveal a vision far broader than mere environmental concern. Here, the Pope speaks of the economy, human dignity, and global power, pointing a direction that touches the very mechanisms of global finance. The speech echoes the language typical of United Nations documents: inclusive, ecological, universalist. Leo XV adopts it, but gives it a moral undertone, presenting finance as an instrument of justice, not domination. However, in the eyes of those who look to faith as a measure of discernment, the risk is clear that the Church, in attempting to humanize the world system, ends up absorbing its paradigms. To speak of international financial architecture means entering the heart of economic power, where Catholic social doctrine, while engaging in dialogue with the world, has always maintained a prudent distance. This time, however, there seems to be a decisive step forward, almost an attempt at direct influence. And many are wondering if this marks the beginning of a season in which the Church intends to return to speaking to the world not only as a spiritual teacher, but also as a geopolitical protagonist. The Belém speech is not an isolated incident, but appears to be part of a broader strategy. For months, Leo XIV has been emphasizing economic and environmental issues, speaking of climate justice and a new pact between peoples and creation. The lexicon, inherited in part from France's Laudato Si', however, takes on a more concrete, almost operational tone under his pontificate. Behind these words, we can glimpse a precise idea. For Leo XIV, the economy is no longer just the field of social doctrine, but an instrument of global conversion. Ecological conversion thus becomes not only a call to respect creation, but a paradigm of social reform, a category that affects politics, justice, and the redistribution of resources. Yet this language raises questions in traditionalist and theological circles. Can the Church, guardian of a supernatural message, promote a global financial restructuring without running the risk of confusing the salvation of souls with economic engineering? It's the same tension that already pervaded the post-Vatican II era, between spirituality and political commitment, between transcendence and horizontalism. And if a third party arrives, then we can imagine the direction it might take. What do you think? If you liked the video, comment, Amen. God bless you.